Thank you very much, Bettina. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to present here at the Sophia Symposium. So I am going to mainly present my own project in link with the JBDB, which has just been added to the JBDB database, for which I am very grateful to Leo, who will present right after me. Concerning this project, so here on the first slide, you can see, so the document on the left is one of the main sources that I use, which is the Jijiko Shinroku, so a sort of, how do you say in English, a sort of dictionary of encyclopedia of people of importance, which was kept for the end of the 19th and beginning of the 20th century. And on the right, we have another of my main sources, which is the Dai Nippon Hakushiroku, which has stored a lot of important information on people that became Hakushi, and notably Igaku Hakushi, during the Japanese imperial period. And on the middle is essentially what I am trying to achieve from these various sources. My project focuses on people that I consider to be elf specialists, that is to say, people who were involved with elf in the roles of deciders and possibly influencers concerning Japanese elf policies. I started this network project in order to better understand how they interact with each other in the context of the Meiji, Taisho, and early Showa periods, as well as how they interact with institutions. So this project, next slide, it doesn't work. Oh, okay, perfect. I just have to click. So this project is actually part of my PhD work. I started my PhD with a focus on quantitative history. The basis of my research work for my PhD was to OCR and exploit quantitatively the statistical data of the Japanese Eiseikyoku for the basically the period of Imperial Japan. And so I, as a sort of parallel work that was more focused on people and institutions, I also started this work on a network of individuals that are linked to not only the production of elf statistics, but also simply the production of elf policies within Imperial Japan. And so I learned about the JBDB project, admittedly, relatively recently, when I went to a workshop in Berlin at the Max Planck Institute, in which there were a lot of representatives of the Chinese biographical database. And by talking with them, I learned about this wonderful project, which I am very eager to take part in. Concerning the main research questions that accompany this network analysis, I had three main questions in varying level of complexity and The first, most obvious one is the question that I had about family, because as soon as I started looking at encyclopedias or such that were talking about elf academics in Meiji, Taisho, and Showa Japan, the first thing that I immediately noticed was that very often, generally at the end of the paragraph concerning a certain academic, there were several mentions of people from his family who often happened to also be involved in the elf academic community of Japan, with generally a very father-to-son transmission of the vocation. So the first question I had, which is a very obvious anthropological question, is to what extent, how far does this aspect go? And then this question about family, which also became, yes, a question of endogamy, of marriage, because a lot of people from the health academic community in Japan at the time married within each other's family, also became a question more about the social status of people within the community. And that's what I call the question of continuity, because a lot of people from this network, which is a network, I haven't mentioned it, but which is, of course, the health academics in Japan. It's a network that is built extremely quickly, relatively speaking, after the Issei, the way health knowledge and practice is framed in Japan quickly undergoes, at least at the academic level, a restructuration on the Occidental level, which very quickly attains the levels of proficiency of Western universities. But it is constituted in a relatively short amount of time. And so a lot of people that are involved in this community of health academics and specialists often come from families who already had an importance in the domain of health even before the Meiji Restoration. So as a result, the question also becomes, to what extent what is seemingly an innovation, a transition into modernity, we could say, regarding to the Meiji Restoration, to what extent is it actually a continuation of health elites that existed before the Meiji Restoration? And finally, another more conceptual question that I wanted to ask regarding this network is what my co-director called the question of lignée spirituelle, spiritual kinship. The idea that maybe if we look at the way these health academics interact with each other, and especially in the relation of professor to student, of the institution to the student, etc., can we maybe find within this network of health academics several schools, several coherent groups that were interacting in a more privileged way with one another than with the rest of the network? I have already mentioned a bit most of my sources, so I mainly use the Dai Nippon Akushiroku and the Jinji Koshinroku. I also use as a secondary source Izumi Takateru's Nihon Kingendai Igaku Jinmei Jiten, which is often which also uses itself the Dai Nippon Hakushiroku a lot, which is also a very precious source for studying this community. Concerning my collection of data, I am not going to go over everything that is on this slide, but the short version is that I collect a lot of classic data that is easily included into the JBDB within my project, basic information, familial information and interactions, as well as a lot of interpersonal interactions. I mentioned the relation of professor to student, etc. I also included a few aspects that I consider very important specifically for my network, such as where these people, and that's where I plan on interacting with another project on the JBDB, which is the foreign student, Japanese foreign student in Germany. So the foreign exchange of Japanese students in Europe, but that is mainly in Germany, as well as I mentioned the Hakushiroku, so what proportion of the network becomes a Igaku Hakushi, when, in what context, etc. And I also have a big part of my network analysis that is focusing on institutions. And notably, that's the part that is not yet included in the JBDB, but I have made the choice to consider within my own network analysis institutions as nodes. I have created nodes institution and treat them as the same way you would treat people, to see how they interact with people, who they are responsible for the teaching of, who they employ, etc. All right, did I forget anything? No, I think so. And so for the last 5 minutes, because I have already taken 10 minutes, I wanted to share with you, it is still very much a work in progress, but I thought it would be pertinent to share with you some preliminary results of my network analysis, because I think it's the best way to convey what I am looking for in this network analysis, even if my sample is still incomplete. So the first thing I mentioned was that I was actually quite surprised within the network of health academics in Pearl, Japan, of the number of familial ties with one another. So this graph is just an handling with Gephi of the entire network, from which I have subtracted, of course, institutions. And every edge is represented, but familial edges are highlighted in red. So of course, that doesn't mean a lot of things, because here I am mixing individuals that were born at very different times. So it's more pertinent to analyze this network by creating cohorts of people to understand where yes, the temporality, of course, of this network. So here we have the same network, but this time I created cohorts to see how the familial ties evolve. So you can see that for now, with my sample as it stands now, by the last cohort, I have almost nobody that does not have a familial tie with another member of the network, often someone of the past generations, actually. So there is a high connectivity in the network in terms of familial ties. And then I mention in my title, family and endogamy. If we limit ourselves to only the marital ties, that is to say, the link between brother-in-laws or son-in-law and father-in-law, we can still see that there is a lot of obviously less, but a lot of connectivity within the network, because a substantial number of people within the network are actually marrying into the family of one another, although this is, of course, not always the case, as we will see just after this, a few slides down the line. Just here, actually. So I mentioned the social standing within the network. I have I am lucky that one of my sources, the Jinji Koshinroku, systematically mentions the social standing by post-Meiji categories of most of the people in my sample. So I am able to make some estimates, even though I do not always have the data for all of the nodes in my network, for what were the social standing of people in my network, as well as in what kind of family they were marrying. So as you can see on the left, there is kind of a close call between a member of the Shizuku and commoners in people that are within this kind of health academic elites, with a few members of the Kazoku. And then if we look at marriage, there is actually a lot of, generally speaking, in the Japanese society at the time, there is a lot of relatively prestigious marriage within the nobility, etc. Although I have to add a big asterisk to this graph on the right because it is limited by whether or not my sources actually bothered to identify the spouses of members of my network. So it is likely that marriages with commoners are extremely underrepresented, especially as we see with the blue part of the graph on the left. Okay, I will try to make it fast. I'm already at 15 minutes. Sorry. Another part of my network analysis that I am trying to, and that's also one of the reasons why I'm extremely excited to be able to tinker with the JBDB tools, because there is a geo-analysis tools that is coming down the line, as I've understood, is to analyze where, of course, people from this network are coming from. Where were they born? What is their sort of geographic identity? And does it have an influence in their career down the line? And for now, with the sample I'm working with, it is apparent, and I mean, it was pretty predictable, that the network is becoming increasingly centralized on the capital of the Empire of Japan, which is Tokyo, for a simple reason, which is that even though at the beginning of the period, most health academics are not born in modern-day Tokyo prefecture, due to the extreme dominance of the Tokyo Imperial University in the field of health during the period, a lot of them are moving to Tokyo at some point in their career and are staying there, which means that, as I mentioned, there is a lot of familial ties. And as a result, an increasing number of people that are part of this kind of health academic elites are born in Tokyo prefecture. And so there is what I call a Tokyoization of the network. Finally, I will quickly present what is arguably the most work in progress aspect of this network analysis, which is the question that I mentioned of the Igaku-Hakushi, because I am trying to make statistics about every member of the network in which I can reliably identify as obtained Akushi, and in that case, Igaku Akushi, even if some of them have several Akushi. And so for now, I am only working with a very restricted sample of 67 people for which I was able to identify her Akushi, but I hope I will find a lot more in the future, of course. And so the three main questions that I am asking for now are first the context of the Igaku-Hakushi, and for which the answer is that a lot of people are awarded this status upon coming back from Europe. And by Europe, I overwhelmingly mean Germany. Yes, they are generally rewarded for work they conducted abroad, actually. And this is confirmed, if you look at the third diagram, by the language of the works that are cited to justify becoming a Igaku-Hakushi, because the majority of them are in German, whether it is exclusively German language works, or it can be German and Japanese, sometimes German and English. But actually, as you can see, the people that became Igaku-Hakushi because of works that were exclusively in Japanese are actually only the third category. So yes, and of course, this is a bit less interesting, but as you can see with the graph on the middle, yes, even in the distribution of Igaku-Hakushi, the Imperial University of Tokyo is extremely dominant. It's almost always the institution that recognizes the status of someone within the network as a Hakushi. And okay, I'm almost 20 minutes in, so I will stop here. Thank you very much for allowing to present my work here. concerning this network analysis, so I plan on, of course, expanding the sample, and I believe partaking in the JBDB will also allow me to make interesting connections with other projects. I'm mostly thinking about the project about Japanese students in German university. I don't remember the exact name of the project, but yes, I am very looking forward to taking part more deeply into the JBDB project. Thank you very much for listening to me.